included all of type of the tissue. The skin is the largest organ that covered our external body surface. Also, in the medicine again, use the integumentum or mostly cutaneous beside of the skin. It included also some derivation as hair and nail that we know about it. The main function of the skin is covering of our outermost body. By this covering, it acts as a protective barrier against some microorganisms, different chemical factors or others that are in the environment, because included some structures as the defense cells, or also the type of the epithelium is important for this protection, or other structures that we know about them. It acts as a sensor. There are a lots of receptors for different senses in the skin. That is a large sensor for any senses that are in the environment, can act as a regulation for the body temperature by the sweat glands that are in the skin, that we know about it in the later slides. It is a metabolic organ in the human, involved in the synthesis of the vitamin D3 with sunlight, and also the excess of the electrolyte by the sweat glands. And finally, can act as a sexual signaling because of the pigmentation, hair, and some cells that are in the skin that involved in this function. Skin is an organ that included 3 layers as epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Epidermis is a type of epithelial tissue, and the dermis and hypodermis are types of the connective tissue. Epidermis derived from the ectodermal layer. Ectodermal layer, the embryo at the first included 3 layers: the ectoderm in the outer part, endoderm in the inner part, and the mesoderm located between of 2. That in the embryology explained for you completely about the differentiation of the embryo. This layer derived to the skin and also central nervous system. The type of the epithelium is the stratified squamous epithelium. The stratified means cells are layer by layer, and the outermost layer are squamous shaped cells, and also the skin is a type of the keratinized squamous epithelium that I said for you in the epithelial tissue. On the squamous shaped cell, there are lots of keratin filaments that we know in more detail about it. The outermost layer of the skin is the dermis. Epiderm, epithelial tissue. Under it, there is a connective tissue. As same as to other part that included the connective tissue, that this connective tissue named as dermis. And you see here, and this schematic picture, some air protrusion and invagination between the dermis and dermis are between of these. That these 2 layers interdigit together tightly and prevent the separation of the epidermis from dermis. That we can see this folding in our skin as some very fine, very fine folds that are more visible in the soles and our palm, and also are in the other part. That one of them is a fingerprint that used for the identification in the police or other system of the, because the structure, this part that included the dermis, named as the papilla. Papilla means finger. Any finger-like projection in our body named the papilla. And in the other other side or opposite of these are peaks that the inverting of the epidermis to dermis, that they attach tightly together. There are two types of the skin in our body, as thin and thick skin. Thick skin are just in the palms and soles that have some specific characterization that we know about them, and thin skin are in the other part of the body. But that the thickness of the epidermis are different between of them. But we know in detail in other slides. The dermis layer located under the epidermis is a type of connective tissue based on its location in the papillary part or in the other part divided to two parts as papillary layer and reticular layer. In the papillary layer included most cells is a type of loose connective tissue, and here, as you know, what is the reticular fiber? Collagen type 3. Here, the collagen type 3 are more because named as the reticular layer. In more detail, the epidermis layer based of the shape of the cells and their function have 5 layers in the thick skin and 4 layers in the thin skin. The epidermis layer is a type of stratified, squamous, keratinized epithelium. The cells are layer by layer. The outermost layer have squamous shape, and on the external surface of these cells there are lots of keratin filaments. If you memorize in the epithelial tissue, there are some intermediate filaments in all of the epithelial cells as keratin or cytokeratin. Keratin is a type of proteins that synthesis in all of these cells. These cells start from basal layer for synthesis of the keratin and gradually store the granules inside of their cytoplasm, and finally this keratin exit from the cells and form a sum of thick filaments under the skin that finally released by the dead cells from our skin. This layer from the deepest part to outermost part included the basal layer, spinous layer, granulosa layer, stratum lucidum, and cornu. The first layer or deepest layer named stratum basalis or basal layer, and its name included the basal cell in the epithelial tissue. We know that every part of our body that lined or covered by epithelial tissue have basal cell. These basal cells act as a stem cell, have mitotic activity. Do mitosis, produce more cells as same as themselves, and also these cells can differentiate to other cells that located on it. As you see here schematically, and you now again in the epithelial tissue, the epithelial cells that here named as basal cell, but they are one layer, mostly have cuboidal shape, have round nucleus, or maybe they are short columnar cells with round nucleus that located on the basement membrane and attached to basement membrane by hemidesmosome and also attached together by desmosome or zonula adherent junction. But you know, in both of these junctions, they finally in the cytoplasmic surface attached to the keratin filament. Thus, these cells start for their synthesis of one type of the intermediate filaments that name the keratin. And this synthesis of the keratin also done occurred in the other layers of the cells, but each of them again have some additional function. The second layer that located on basal layer are spinous layer or stratum spinosome. They included very big cells. The biggest cells are in this layer, one. The thickest layer also in this layer, in the epidermal layer, in the thin skin. Yes? How we name them as spinous? Because when we prepare the slides, yes, this is a artificial techniques that occur in these cells. These cells, in their peripheral part, have some very fine spine structures, as this. Because of it, named as the spinous cells. Their name. But what is this spine? As you know that the keratin filaments that produce in these cells form some visible bundles as these that are in the cytoplasm, and also you know there are the junction between them as desmosome or zonula adherent, that these tonofilaments under the processing a little stretch and they form these spinous structures in the spinous layer, that they included the numerous desmosome, and these resist for the friction of the cells. These cells are biggest, thickest epidermal layer and also included the biggest cells. Under electron microscope, we can also see these spine structures. These spine structures occur because of the tissue processing. It means that in our body freshly, we cannot see them as spinous structures. The third layer are stratum granulosome. They included the granules. There are some cytoplasmic granules inside of them. What is this granule? These granules included some granules or some membrane-coated lamellar structures that included some glycoproteins as filaggrin or keratobulins. soles, because our palms and soles also need more protection because we touch them by our hands, lots of things, and also by our foot, we walking in some parts. It included the 15 to 20 layers of the flattened, non-nucleated keratinized cell. Keratinized cells means the cytoplasm filled by the keratin filaments. And after the keratinization, the cell contains just some proteins of the fibrillary keratin that fill them. Keratinization means the synthesis of the keratin. That, as you see here, start from the basal cell and gradually continue until the stratum lucidum. And finally, in this layer, they occupy the outermost layer of the skin. The keratinization occurs in the epidermal layer, and these cells, these 5 layers of the cells, yes, the keratin synthesis start from basal layer and continue to the corneum layer. All of these cells named as keratinocytes. The cells that involve in the synthesis of the keratin, and this process of the keratin synthesis named keratinization, done by all of these cells. It is one important function of the skin. Some person maybe have high amount of the keratinization. Keratinization and production of the keratin, and also differentiation of one basal cell to one cornified cells in the human take around 28 to 30 days. It means our skin epidermal cells renew in each month. But in some person, maybe this period a little shorter, and the keratinization have more speed and they have a dry skin. They suffer from one disease as psoriasis. Maybe some person that have severe psoriasis, it takes just 5 to 10 days. That have a redness color skin, and also there are some keratinized structures in their skin. That is a autoimmune disease that occurs in some persons that have a high anxiety and stress. Keratinocytes are one type of the cells in the epidermis. Yes, all of these cells are keratinocytes that produce the keratin. There are additional to keratinocytes 3 types of the cells that are between the cells of the epidermis as melanocyte, Merkel, and Langerhans cells. The keratinocyte that I explained for you, and this is the psoriasis, and some part there, another thing that is important clinically are the junction between the cells, the desmosome that are until the stratum lucidum, and then the outermost layer lasting. Some person also maybe suffered from the genetic disorders that the desmosome proteins mutate and the cells not attached together tightly, and the water leak between the cells, and this person also suffered from the one disease that has different types, that find all of them generally named as the pemphigus. This is just in the parentheses for your knowledge, because we know more about them. The second cell is melanocyte, are the cells that involve in the synthesis of melanin situation and differentiate to epidermis and also nervous tissue. But the neural killer cells that are here can migrate to other part and differentiate to some cells that I think around maybe 10 types of the cells derived from the neural killer cells. This the melanocyte derived from the neural killer cells. These cells migrate to the skin and differentiate to these cells that involved in the production of the melanin, different type of these, that's eumelanin or pheromelanin, that finally transfer to keratinocyte. The melanocytes are in the basal surface. The body with its nucleus are in the, as you see here, in the basal layer. There have lots of cytoplasmic process that this process, as you see here, located between the keratinocyte. Why? Because the melanocyte produce and synthesis the melanin, but this melanin transfer to keratinocyte and store in the keratinocyte. Opposite to our some idea that the people think that these cells involved in the synthesis and also storage of it. Yes, the melanin is a protein synthesis in the RER, packaged in the Golgi apparatus as some small particles that name the melanosome. That's biochemically some changes occur in them, and this melanosome transfer to the cytoplasmic process of the melanin. In the cytoplasmic of the melanin, there are lots of keratin filaments, another part, because they are under the cell membrane and by also go through this process. Finally, the tip of this process that included the melanin separate from the melanocyte and transfer to the keratinocyte and store in the keratinocyte and remain in them and involved in the color of the skin, hair, nail, and also protection through the melanocyte synthesis melanin, keratinocyte act as a storage of them. One melanocyte plus some keratinocyte that transfer melanosome from this melanocyte named as epidermal melanin unit. One melanocyte plus the related keratinocyte. Previously, we believed that the person that have different color in their skin, the person that are dark or are more color in their skin, believe that they have more melanocyte. But recently, by discovering of this unit that included one melanocyte plus the keratinocyte, scientists discovered that in the person that have darker skin have more these unit. For example, this melanocyte, yes, for example, the European person that have a light skin, yes, synthesis the melanin and transfer them to 15. One melanocyte beat 15 keratinocyte, yes, form just one unit. But in the dark person, for example, in the Africa, that they have a dark color skin, yes, one keratinocyte, melanocyte, transfer their melanosome to maybe 2 or 3 keratinocyte. It means the unit of the epidermal melanin are more in this person, that more keratinocyte store more melanin, and finally they have dark color. This is maybe one of the questions. What is the epidermal melanin unit? The other cell is Langerhans cell. What is the Langerhans cell? Yes, they derive from monocyte. They are the macrophage of the skin, mononuclear phagocyte system. Yes, in the connective tissue, explain for you that the monocyte migrate to other organs and differentiate to different type of the macrophage. Just the name is different. Langerhans cells are macrophage of the skin, are in the spinous layer as these, and they also have some cytoplasmic process, and here by immunohistochemistry you can see them as brown color and also show the brown process. Yes, they are located between the keratin that can identify the antigen that track them or no. They can act as a antigen presenting cells. Antigen presenting cells are as included, for example, the macrophage, neutrophil, lymphocyte that identify the antigen and present them to other cells. These Langerhans also phagocyte them, but also can present them, for example, to the lymphocyte or other cells. Merkel cells are on the basal layer again. They act as a receptor, mechanoreceptor for light touch. Yes, that they are related to the nerves. Yes, the end of the nerves have contact to these cells, and these cells act as a receptor. These cells also derive from neural crest cells. Another question. Which of the cells derive from bone marrow? Keratinocyte, Merkel cell, Langerhans cells, and melanocyte. Langerhans cells, or maybe no, another one about the neural crest cells. They are the mechanoreceptors for light touch, are in the basal layer, and also they included the ciliary cytoplasm that act as a sensory for touch. These are the cells of the epidermis. Different layer of the epidermis, keratinocyte cells in different layer, with different shape, with different function, and also other type of the cells. The dermis layer is a strong, flexible, connective tissue. Have two parts. The type of the connective tissue. In the papillary part, named papillary layer, included the loose connective tissue. In the loose connective tissue, the cells, fibers, and ground substance are equal and included more cells. All of the cells that you know in the connective tissue, and also all type of the fibers. They have an important role in their body temperature because they included lots of vessels, and they innervated by the sympathetic nerves, not parasympathetic. And the second layer is the reticular layer that included the cells of the connective tissue, also some irregular bundles of the collagen fiber type 1, but the collagen type 3 are more dominant in this layer. They form a framework for the dermis layer. They are rich in the collagen type 2. And the hypodermis is the deepest layer of the skin. We also, it's as the superficial fascia in the macroanatomy. When we dissect the cadaver, remove the epidermis underneath, you can find the hypodermis. Mostly included the fatty tissue, white adipose tissue. Yesterday I fixed for you the white adipose tissue from in the hypodermis. There are lots of adipocyte cells in the hypodermis that act as for the protection of the lubrication. The blood vessels in the dermis form a network iskelas I memorized that I should change it. Yes, the one plexus between the epidermis, dermis, another one dermis and hypodermis. But these enrichment in the vessels is important that are in the dermis one, and second one they involve in the regulation of the body temperature. The dermis in the thin skin especially have some specific structures. Most of the structures that are related to the function of the skin, such as sweat gland, hair follicle, sebaceous glands, the vessels, nerves, or others, are mostly in the dermis layer. In the dermis layer, also there are some receptors for different senses, as pressure, cold, heat, light touch, deep touch, or anything. Yes? That these nerves, some of them are free. That maybe are close to the hair follicle or no, they penetrated and invaginate to the epidermal layer. They are free nerve ending. They are not enclosed by a capsule, are unencapsulated receptors. That most of them are free nerve ending. Just now that there are two types of these receptors, unencapsulated and capsulated. In the capsulated receptors, the nerves enclosed by a very fine layers of the basal lamina that have different names, as these Raffini, Cruz, or others, Pacini, that are in the dermis layer. They are encapsulated receptors that are again involved in the different senses of the skin. Just you know the type of them. Yes, not necessary to memorize the name of them and also involved in which sense or other one. Can study by yourself, but not necessary to memorize them. Briefly, the skin included three layers as epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. The epidermis included 5 layers, dermis 2 layers, and the hypodermis 1 layer. Most of the structures are in the dermal layer, and the hypodermis don't have any specific structures, and epidermis have different type of the cells that are in different layers and have different functions. In the dermal layer, there are some structures that we can identify by these structures, the thin skin and thick skin from together in the histology. And another thing, because of the different function of the thick and thin skin cover most part of our body and have some specific structures. One of them is the hair follicle. Our hair are elongated keratinized structures that derive from the epidermis and hypodermis. They are in everywhere except in the palms, soles, lips, nipples, and some parts of the external genitalial tract. Hair follicle has 2 parts. One expanded part that is in the dermis. This part derived from the basal and the spinous layer. Yes? The dermis. Yes? The epidermis have 4 layers, 5 layers. Yes? When these epidermis layer invaginate to inside the dermis, these structures is the hair. And also when it's invaginate inward, bring by itself the layers of the epidermis. The deepest of the basal, yes, are located here. And finally form the vital part of the hair, that named as hair valve, that involved in the renewing of the hair. Thus the hair, just about hair is enough for you. Hair have a valve that is the terminal dilation of the hair, included the basal layer and the also hair part that included the connective tissue plus vessels, the puppy. And hair shaft, that's some of the shaft located inside of the skin, in dermal and epidermal layer, and some part of it exposed that we can see. Hair shaft is a keratinized structures that included the cornified layer and also the locidum layer that form the shaft of the hair, have different parts. Just study by yourself. Don't need to memorize them for the exam or other thing. Also in the basic science exam, not have any question about this. Close to the hair, there is a muscle of the isthmus muscle that named the erector pili muscle or erector muscle. It involved in the erection of the muscle. In some condition, maybe occur for you, mostly in the anxiety, stressful, or happiness. Yes, our hair of the skin erected because of the contraction of these muscles. Under microscope, this muscle, a smooth muscle with a spindle-shaped nucleus located close to the hair. It attached and located adjust to the hair. Sebaceous glands are other structures that are in the dermal layer, again adjust and close to the hair. Sebaceous gland produce the sebum. Sebum is a combination of high amount of the cholesterol and triglycerides. Thus, the sebum have a lipidy, fatty structures that it's duct open to the hair, lubricate the hair and soft it and prevent the growing of the bacteria and fungi around the hair. They are very similar to the brown adipose tissue cell that we see them yesterday and tomorrow, and today we can see them again. Yes, they produce the sebum and holocarine secretion. What is the holocarine secretion? The whole of the cells, yes, the whole of the cell released in the exocytosis, and they open to the hair shaft. They don't have the separate duct for themselves. Sweat glands are other structures in the skin based of their secretion, and the model of the secretion divided to three types: eccrine or merocrine sweat glands. We have one model of the secretion as merocrine. These glands are more numerous and exit their products by exocytosis and have a separate ducts and pores, and the most of the amount of the sweat produced by them and included the more water or other things. Apocrine sweat glands. What is the apocrine model? Apoapex. The apical part of the cells also removed by the sweat. Where is this apocrine glands? Are in the axillary or genitalia, external genitalia. Their function, their activity start at the puberty, and they controlled by the sexual hormones. Also, they ducts open into the hair follicles that are in the axillary part or genitalia part. That their products also have odor molecules and involved in the sexual activity in the human or other animals. Modified apocrine glands, the glands that release their products by apocrine, again the apical part of the cells removed. But the type of the secretion is not sweet, are ceruminous or milk. Ceruminous sweat glands are in the external ear, secreted the ear wax or ceruminous. And the mammary gland that secrete these are the type of the sweat glands that under microscope they have some differences together. Merocrine or eccrine are more. They are simple compared to the separate duct for themselves. But the apocrine sweet glands are more toward the secretory portion and they ducts open to the hair follicle. And under the microscope, you can find the lots of transfer section of them. When the knife passes from here, you can see lots of round structures that show to us the sweet glands that we can see them under microscope. Around the secretory portion and also the duct of the sweet glands are myoepithelial cells on the basal lamina that involve in their contraction and they facilitate the releasing of the sweet gland from these cells. Finally, there are two types of the skin in our body, as thick and thick skin. They have structures and the characterization that I explained for you are in both of them, but they have some differences together. Thin skin covers whole part of our body except the palms and soles that are included the thick skin. The thickness of the epidermis and also the thickness of the stratum are different in these two types. As you see here, the thick skin have a high thickness of the epidermis. Epidermis is from the basal layer to the cornified layer. And also more thickness of the cornified layer. In the thick skin, the cornified included maybe 40 to 50 layers of the keratin filaments, but in the thin skin maybe between the 5 to 10 layers. The thick skin don't have any hair follicle and also sebaceous glands, but have more sweet glands compared to the thin skin. And also the ridge and peaks that I explained for you here are less and few in the thin skin, but they are more in the thick skin. In the book, the students that study the book, yes, the histology. The cell is a second and third chapter. That, as I said for you, its exam is separate. It's with biochemistry. And I think I know the date of it, but I don't know what. Yes. Then you have another block, another credit as tissue development and function. That the tissue finish included 4 types of the tissues that start from the 4th chapter until the 9th. Then one chapter is the circulatory system that is not in this session, and after the circulatory there is 2 chapters as blood and hematopoiesis, and the chapter 18 is for skin.